I will destroy humans.
A lot of people ask me what I consider to be true horror, because I talk a lot about the dark side of the internet, to include torture videos, gore, and human mutilation, which would fall under body horror. But with modern horror films, it seems to be like, as soon as you exit the theater, or you turn off your monitor, or you turn off your TV, or whatever it is you're doing, as soon as you leave the horror there, and you kind of forget about it because it is just a film. It's just a video, and you don't need to worry about it following you home. To me, the true form of horror is one that stays with you for days, months, or even years. And we're talking about psychological horror. But not only that, my favorite type of psychological horror or psychological thriller would be the effect of Uncanny Valley. Today we're going to talk about Uncanny Valley, uncovering exactly what it is and how it's used in a lot of horror and even not horror genres of movies and even in real life. How are you guys doing today? I'm doing great, thanks for asking. So today we're going to cover Uncanny Valley. Uncanny Valley, if you are not aware, is a phenomenon that occurs in real life and also in horror movies, and also not in total not horror movies. And we're going to cover exactly what it is. And when we're talking about the Uncanny Valley effect, we're also going to talk about how it affects us in real life, so including some modern examples, some examples in popular pop culture like horror games and horror movies and stuff like that, and also some theories of why Uncanny Valley is such a profound effect on the human mind. Now, as you can see, I'm standing today, right? I got my mic out. It's crazy. I took a page out of Wendigoon's book. I should have a whiteboard right here. That's a hint for a later video, if you didn't know. And since I do not have an advertisement for this video, I would also like to remind all of you that there is a donation link down in the description below for children's hospitals. I don't see a penny of it. The link takes you right to their landing page where I can't even access it. I can only see how many dollars have been donated to the specific cause. And all you need to know is that it goes to a good cause, which is children's hospitals. I will continue to guilt trip the out of you until you donate. I would also like to make the exciting announcement, if you have not read the community tab in a while, is that I am actually working on a horror movie or a horror movie short, and I want to get it produced, written, edited, and shot and casted and all that kind of good shit, and I want to get it out by at least early 2024. But of course, if there are some minor setbacks, we will push it back because I want it to be as perfect as possible. Now, I'm extremely ambitious. I want the budget of this movie to be at least $50,000. Yes, I know. Where the am I going to get that money from, huh? And that is where, if you want, you could help me. You don't have to do this, but this is for people that do want to support. I'm not going to guilt trip you into any of this. It's just totally of your own free will. If you would like to come and help and support, I do have a Patreon now, and there are actually 3 tiers. Only one of them I do recommend. Now, the first tier is just for monetary support, as I don't have ads and I do need equipment like a new camera, and I also need a new microphone because this one's dented. Can you see that? Look at that. You see that? Dented. I put my finger there now because it's just I don't need a new microphone. Actually, it's pretty nice to have that dent there. But the first tier is to just help the channel monetarily. The second tier is actually, yes, it is a little more expensive, but that is actually where you get the actual benefits from actually supporting the Patreon. Now, the second tier actually includes early access to all of my videos where I upload there 1 day early. Now, this includes my first draft of the screenwriting process, in which I'm working on right now. Also, a bunch of other things that I can't think of right now because obviously I've never written a movie, but we will learn as we go along. And also, you will get early access and concepts to different types of merch that I will be dropping as we hit several milestones down the road. Now, what I mean by that is I am actually working on a horror manga. I know this is the first time a lot of you have been notified of that, unless you follow me on Twitter, by the way. Go follow me on that. See me tweet about me having a waffle at 2 in the morning. So fun. But yes, I'm working on a horror manga and I want to release it as my 1 million subscriber merch. Will we ever reach 1 million subscribers? I don't know. I'm just super ambitious. So also subscribing to the second tier will also give you early access to the early concepts of the manga, which is in production right now. Actually, I actually have a whole page written with concept and it will be on Patreon later tonight. But basically, the second tier gives you early access to everything that I'm doing. For example, my video that you're watching right now will be uploaded on Patreon 1 day early. This one won't be, but from now on it will be, because this is the first time you're hearing about it and that just would not be fair. You also get to watch the movie when it does release 1 whole week early than everybody else, and that is just because you decided to support the movie in and of itself. So you get to watch the movie early. And the third tier, I just put it there because it's weird. I don't know why I put it there. Don't ever go for the third tier. It's the flex tier. It's $25 a month. If you do that, I'm going to slap you. I'm going to find him. I'm going to slap you. I put it there because it's funny to me. Don't do that. Actually, I might remove that shit. I might remove it because that is the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. So the Uncanny Valley actually has some sort of scientific theory to it, if that would make sense. So what I have here is a graph. This is the Uncanny Valley graph. Now, as you can see on the x-axis, is it the x-axis? Is the flat one the x? Hold on, I gotta fucking, it's been like fucking 10 years since I've been in high school. Leave me alone. Yes, okay, it's on the x-axis. So as you can see from the graph, on the x-axis, you see human likeness, and on the y-axis, you can see the familiarity. You know what I mean. Now, all the way on the left, you can see an industrial robot. Now, I don't like that they put the industrial robot here because there's a lot of different types of industrial robots. What I would like to say is industrial machines. For example, something that shapes metal into a specific shape. Something that you need a human to actually come through and shape something, like pull the machine down to actually shape whatever it is you're shaping. That is what I would like to put there instead of the industrial robot. Now, further up the ladder, you got the humanoid robot. Now, when they're talking about a humanoid robot, they're not talking about the ones that look like humans, right? That would be the Uncanny Valley. What they're talking about is, for example, when Honda made that one robot, you can tell that it's supposed to look or resemble a human, but you can clearly tell that it is not. It's a robot. You can tell that. Now, below that, you have a stuffed animal. Now, obviously, the familiarity, the F word, is further up than the stuffed animal, which is a little closer. And I know on the graph it has stuffed animal and all that kind of stuff. We're going to ignore the solid line there because it just adds to the confusion. So we're going to stick with the dotted one. Now, as you can see, after the humanoid robot, the graph actually crests and then it drops down into a valley where at the very bottom is a zombie. Now, zombies, as you can tell, were once human. You can tell that it is human. It's just no longer human anymore. You can tell that it is different because obviously it's a fucking zombie. Tell me that that is a human and that is in its right mind. You tell me that right now. No, it's not. And then after that, we shoot right back up and we crest again at a healthy person, such as me and you. Now, that little valley there from the crest right after humanoid robot all the way to healthy person, that is what is known as Uncanny Valley. Now, if you still don't get what the Uncanny Valley is by looking at this graph, don't worry, I didn't fucking get it either. I'm gonna explain it to you the way it was explained to me before I even knew Uncanny Valley was a thing. Things that fall in the Uncanny Valley category would be things that clearly resemble a human, but it's not. And it goes way past things that take the likeliness of a human. For example, the humanoid robots, it's just something that is clearly mimicking a human, but you can tell something is off that gives away the fact that it is not a human. That is why a zombie is all the way down at the bottom of that Uncanny Valley. You see what I'm going with this? When you Google Uncanny Valley, 3 of the most prominent examples of it will pop up. The first being assistants, the second being robots, and the third being CGI. Now, we're going to dive into each and every one of these just a little bit so you get where they're coming from. Now, with the assistants, they're talking about Google Assistant, Cortana, Siri, things like that, because they obviously have a human voice, but you can clearly tell that they're not human. That's why they fall into the Uncanny Valley category, because they are clearly mimicking a human, but you can tell because of their robotic voices that they are not human. Now, this gets a little more apparent when you talk about robots. So we're not talking about the humanoid robots like before the crest on the graph. We're talking about things like Sophia the robot. She is one of the most prominent examples of this. Sophia the robot not only is a fucking robot, she has the likeness of a human. Not only that, she has the ability to mimic human reactions with her robotic face, and that is fucking terrifying to me. On top of that, Sophia the robot is able to store information in her microchip in her brain, unless she has an actual human brain in there, and at that point that wouldn't surprise me. She has the ability to mimic emotions. She has the ability to portray emotions in her voice and the way she speaks, and also she has the ability to mimic human reactions on her face. Now, although there are other clear-cut examples of this exact robot example, Sophia seems to be the most prominent example of this because she has been on literal talk shows and she has clearly stated, "This information will help me dominate the human race." Why don't we just throw it in a fire? I don't understand. And the last clear-cut example of this would be CGI. Now, when I'm talking about CGI, I'm not talking about 2016's Berserk. No, we all know how the that went. That was terrible. The animation was horrible. That is what is CGI. Or even the 1990s show where Optimus Prime was a tiger or a ape. I don't know, like the really bad CGI, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the CGI of today, where things look so realistic, however, some sort of rendering problem made the person smile a little too big, and you were not aware that it was CGI until that very moment. That is what they're talking about when they're saying CGI is also part of the Uncanny Valley. They're not talking about the 90s CGI, they're talking about the 2023 now, that's crazy to me, CGI. With the exception of CGI, there is a very limited amount of people that have actually seen a robot with a human likeness and actually have a smartphone. Not everyone can afford a smartphone, so can be appreciated for what you have. Almost everyone in the world has seen the following example that I'm about to give that is also a really clear-cut example of the Uncanny Valley effect, and that would be mannequins. Now, mannequins are one of the most prominent examples because they are literally everywhere, from shopping malls to department stores. Anywhere that you can buy any piece of clothing, there are mannequins there for the sole purpose of displaying clothes. And that is what a lot of people seem to think. Now, when you think of a mannequin with clothes on, you don't think of anything of it, right? It's just there to display clothes that they want you to buy. It is a display item. That's all it is. And that is why a lot of people classify mannequins as in the Uncanny Valley category, but not so terrifying. But what if you, let's say, have a mannequin that doesn't have any clothes on, and it's just standing there in a warehouse, and there's just one, and it's standing there like this? That, for me at least, would be enough to take it from the not so scary category into the truly terrifying category. Something that it looks human, but you can tell that it is not. Now, those were all just examples of things that you would see in the real world that would be an example of the Uncanny Valley effect. Now, what if we take the Uncanny Valley effect and we put it into pop culture? For example, media, movies, creepypastas. Now, one of the most, if not the most popular example of the Uncanny Valley effect in horror would be no other than Slender Man. Now, how he's an example of the Uncanny Valley effect is that he does look human. He has 4 limbs, he has a head, he wears clothes. However, when you take a closer look at Slender Man, his arms are longer than usual. He has no face, and he stands in the trees and he does this whole thing, but with no face, right? So he's just like this. That. Now, a lot of people would like to also put Jeff the Killer into this category. This is kind of a tangent, but I'm going to put it in there. Jeff the Killer is not an example of the Uncanny Valley. It's because he was human. He just decided to cut his eyelids off and put a smile on his face. He is human. He f***ed himself up. Sort of like the Joker, but more edgy, I guess. Now, the most recently commercially successful and recent film that has done this would be the movie Smile, which released in October of 2022. Smile has 2 examples of the Uncanny Valley effect in there, and I think that it does it actually pretty well. The first one would be the actual smile. To be specific, the very first victim's smile. Now, when looking at this picture, you can tell that the smile is a little bit too wide. That is a perfect example of subtle Uncanny Valley effect that I love and I think is true actual terror and horror. This way that her smile is a little bit too wide, almost emotionless, that is the Uncanny Valley effect. And now I'm going to get into spoilers, so if you haven't seen Smile, don't. That movie was a big letdown, but if you want to see it anyway, this is a spoiler. Now, the second example of the Uncanny Valley effect in Smile would be the last scene where she's talking to her mother, who is very clearly CGI, by the way. That's another example of what they were talking about in the beginning, it's CGI. And when she gets taller and bigger to the point where she has to climb through the door and look at her, right? That is another example of why the Uncanny Valley effect is so terrifying, and that's why it's being used more and more in recent horror media. That is because something that looks human but is not is extremely terrifying, and that is a very good example of what the Uncanny Valley is and its effectiveness in horror. Now, there's actually an interesting theory that I agree with 100% when it comes to the Uncanny Valley effect. The reason we humans are afraid of certain things is because of the evolutionary process and how we were as primitive beings. For example, by default, humans are afraid of the dark, and that is because we cannot see what's in the dark. We can't sense the dangers. We don't know what's out there. That's why we're afraid of the dark. That's why primitive humans would build fires and sleep around them. I don't want to hear anything about warmth. I know it's that, but that's also a reason, because they couldn't see. They couldn't see the dangers. They couldn't see the wolves. The fire would keep the wolves out. They couldn't see Bigfoot. The fire would scare away Bigfoot or whatever. Another example would be the deep ocean. We can't see the dangers that lurk down there. That's another reason why we're afraid. Basic human instincts tells us that if we can't see the danger, then we are always in danger, such as dark. So why do we fear the uncanny valley? Why is that such a natural reaction to us to be repulsed by? Given the examples, and my prominent theory to this would be that we were hunted when we were in our Stone Age. We were being hunted by something that looks human, but very clearly is not if you pay enough attention. It's the subtle details that gave away that they were not human. Anyway, that's just my theory. The reason that we're afraid of things that look human but aren't is because we were being hunted by things that looked human but aren't. But that's it. That's Uncanny Valley in a nutshell. If you have other examples of this, please leave them down in the comments below. I always enjoy reading the comments, and I always enjoy reading your guys' thoughts about the topic that I discuss. It really brings me a lot of joy. So if you have some sort of example of Uncanny Valley or the Uncanny Valley effect, leave them in the comments below. I'll be more than happy to read them. Also, thank you guys so much for such an amazing year of 2022. I really cannot express my gratitude to you guys enough for all the love you're showing me here, the love you're showing me on TikTok, on all my other social media. It is actually amazing. I don't know what else to say. I hope you guys had a Merry Christmas. I hope you guys had a Happy New Year or a Happy Hanukkah or whatever it is you celebrate. I hope you had a great time doing it with your friends, your family, or even if you're alone, just like me. If you were doing it alone, I hope that you had a great time doing it. Now again, the donation links to both donating to children's hospitals and also my Patreon are down in the description below. If you would like to support children's hospitals and also the movie that I'm coming out with, if you'd like to pitch in for it, please feel free to click on the links below and donate your money to either the children's hospitals or to the movie. I would really much appreciate it either way. Thank you guys so much for your generosity. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys later. Bye.